That's exactly how you start. Feels good, man. Welcome, fiends, to Handle Whiskey, presented by the Slashing Cats Podcast Network. Our show discusses horror movies and the phobias that they emphasize. With me tonight, as always, are my co-hosts, Holly, Hooch, and John. And, not only that, but we also have a returning guest tonight. So first up, let me introduce our returning guest. We have Grindhouse. So, Grind, good to have you back after, I'm kind of surprised that you're here, given the fact that, last night didn't really go according to, what you thought we were going to be doing. But, sometimes you got to throw a curveball in there.
Watching Sharkula, I'll be perfectly honest with you. I have not laughed that hard in a long time. There was a couple of times I literally fell out of my chair. I was laughing so hard. And if it wasn't for the paper mache shark, it was for Dracula taking a stroll across a sunny meadow in the middle of the day. Mm-hmm. So it was fantastic, which is why I keep coming back.
Yeah, the whole time, just okay, just, give me humanoids. I was like, oh, man, sorry, this is the only week I actually had planned out in advance. Because, normally it's Tuesday, I hop and I'm like, oh, what's out this week? And, we'll throw something on. But, Amityville in Space finally came out. And, the primary reason why I wanted to do that is, one, I'm a masochist. So I was like, let's watch a couple of B movies that I have set expectations for, but I didn't. My thought process going in was I want to see if they're at or below what I had as the worst ranked movies that I've seen this year. And I will happily say neither of them fell below the Requiem bar, which is my worst ranked film so far this year. But it was so funny comparing these two movies because they're from the same distributor. They have the same film crew. And, Sharkula, yes, it was a B movie, but the camera had a really hard time having any sort of focus when there was more than one thing in the view of the camera for whatever reason. Whereas with Amityville in Space, it was crystal clear throughout. So you didn't get to see the side-by-side comparison.
Well, did you notice at all, though? It seemed like when they had the fire goddess on screen, swinging her fire, that was shot by a drone in 4K. Mm-hmm. And then they went back to the rest of the movie, and it was VHS, baby. It was wow. I mean, so it's I think they spent their whole budget on shooting the fire goddess scenes. But like I said, I laughed. I laughed like I have not laughed in a long time. Totally worth it. Totally worth it. Just to see it and just take in the experience. So,
like I said, add in another movie on your list for 22 releases.
Damn right. Yep. Damn right. Yep.
Nah, well, it's too bad Holly and John weren't there for that experience because it was a one night only affair. But here we are, guys. Aquaphobia slowly winding down and kind of going back to the roots of another creature feature again after we had just reviewed Alligator this past week.
Yeah, that was a...
Yeah, do you know...
I was going to say that was
I'm sorry, go ahead,
Holly.
Alligator.
Oh, Alligator is fantastic. To jump back one step, the phobia thing that you do is brilliant, my friend. It is absolutely brilliant. It takes horror and people that love horror to a new place, because if water maybe isn't one of your things, then maybe you aren't down for this 4 weeks or whatever. Water is a phobia for me. I have a morbid fucking fear of drowning. Morbid. Then you throw in an alligator, a creature from the Black Lagoon, a humanoid from the deep,
you're getting raped?
A leviathan, and it's oh,
drowning
God.
and I'm getting raped.
Well, exactly. I'm drowning and I'm being raped from a humanoid from the deep. It's so, but then just talking about the creature features. I think that there's so many creature features now, especially the older ones, that are so overlooked. And people don't give them the credit that they deserve. Creature from the Black Lagoon, I hadn't watched that in forever. And I watched it with you guys, and I was like,
Hold up.
My God, this movie is so great. It's so great, and but it's really easy to dismiss the older stuff. It's just like, well, that was back then. It's not going to be any good. And there were so many things that Holly said about it, about like the guys in the tight white shorts, and it's like, we're so bravado, and it's like, we're just going to come in here, we're going to save the day. But like, that's kind of what it was back then. And it's when you watch it again and you sort of, and this is going to be a stupid sentence, but if you let it in and you just like digest a little bit, it's so great. They're just so great, you know? So, I mean, like I've been absolutely digging Aquaphobia. I mean, it is so, it's for me personally, it's so spot on. And the movies that you picked are just absolutely, I mean, they're just great. I mean,
thank you.
You have a way, and I don't know how you guys do this, and it's honestly a little bit annoying that you guys do this so well, that you pick movies that find a way. Like, I hadn't watched The Host in forever. I hadn't watched it in forever. And then I didn't stay awake the one night to watch it, but then it was like, damn it, I feel like I missed something. So I got to go back and I got to watch it again. So I watched a movie and then I listened to your podcast and it was just like, oh, God, you guys know what you're doing. And it's super frustrating because you're so damn good at it.
Thanks. It's
just so damn good
at
at
the beer.
I was going to say, for the host, before that we just recorded the details, and I was like, guys, was I too drunk on my host? Because it was the second movie review of the night, and my friend was here, we were partying, and oh, good.
That was Morticia,
Yes.
right? That was
She's
Morticia?
wonderful.
Yeah. Well, and I'm to be perfectly honest, I'm fine with it being the beer because I was listening to right at the end, John was talking a little bit about Humanoids from the Deep and how, and I'm going to quote him here, how rapey it was, and it was definitely rapey. There's no getting around that. But that was such a consequential statement to me, where I was just like, watching the movie and watching everything that like happens to all the people there. I mean, I think there are a grand total of 2 women, possibly 3 female cast members in the entire film that don't magically get their tops ripped off.
I think the older lady,
and it's like,
one of them.
Yeah.
Well, probably for obvious reasons, but I mean, it's like, I never, again, seen this movie when I was 10 years old for the first time. Like, I understood what it was, but like, now that I'm not 10 years old anymore, this whole movie, it might be one of the most hypersexual movies I've ever seen in my life. Like, there is just so much. I mean, it's about either fishing or getting laid. There's not a lot of other,
because when they're
like,
not being
profound
rapey,
topics.
they're consensually having sex. Yeah.
Yeah,
that or feeding your dog. I was trying to feed the dog and the dog's gone.
it's a feature.
Okay.
It's definitely a feature of the movie. Like, I think the writer or the director or whoever, maybe it was Roger Corman himself, said this.
No, it was Barbara Peters. Barbara Peters. It was directed by a woman.
Not quite though, right?
Yeah. Well,
to an extent.
To an extent, we'll call it that.
Shit was given to like a second director.
Oh, really?
Who was like the assistant to the director or something like that. I forget his name.
Oh, that's a good point. Yeah, I can't think of it either, but it was like,
it's really interesting. This movie is actually it's got so many different really interesting elements to it. So we're up here in Northern California, and I hadn't seen this movie since I was a kid as well. And so watching it, immediately you're like, that's Mendocino. That's Murder, She Wrote country. And so super excited. I'm a big fan of Mendocino. And we're both, John here is a local. I moved here about 17 years ago. So big fan, right? Mm-hmm. And so that was very exciting. And then all of the locations that are mentioned, they're actually real places too. There's not like made up towns. It's not like Cabot Cove.
Yeah, it sounds like a made up town, but it's a real place.
Yeah, we looked it up. I was like, what a stupid name. Oh, it's real.
Yeah, Noyo, California. Noyo, California.
And I swear, I think I must have seen an edited version of this movie when I was a kid, when I initially saw this, because I don't remember it being so graphic and having so much nudity in it. So maybe I saw a TV version. I thought I had rented it.
Was it like, 20 minutes long?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
But this,
If you take out the boobs and the fuzz, this movie's like 20 minutes long.
and
Yeah.
for
It's just,
the old people, for those of us who are older, this is one of those movies that I definitely remember seeing on the rack of the video store all the time. There were certain movies at the video stores around my area where that would always just be on the rack, and it looked like nobody ever rented them. They just sat there for years. And Humanoids from the Deep was definitely one of those movies where I always saw it and wondered about it, but never saw it. And then I saw it later. But I think I saw it.
And just
Gotcha.
Just the poster though. The poster for this movie is
it's great.
It's enticing. Like, I mean, like, it would make you want to go to your Blockbuster and be like, well, I could probably watch this. I mean, but then, like, to John's point, it gets a little rapey.
So the thing was that, this movie was originally called, like, the Dark Deep or Deep.
Monsters.
No, that's
Monsters. It was called Monsters.
Was like the European and like Japanese title. It was like Beneath the
something like that. The Darkness Beneath Beneath the Darkness, and that was the film that Barbara Peters was directing. And so when you see it being just a very straightforward, serious film, like, those are her parts. And she apparently, Corman had told her, like, well, the women get raped and the dudes die horribly. And she was like, got it. But, you know, her murder scenes for the dudes were really above and beyond great. But then her rape scenes were very suggestive, as in, like, you know, oh, the camera pans away, stuff like that, and respectful, if you will. And so Corman, like, really didn't enjoy that. And so he actually hired a second crew, which was just made up of the 3 monster suits and a bunch of naked girls and the assistant director who, you know, got promoted to do all of the rape scenes. And so all of the nudity and the rape scenes were done by the second crew, which is why, I mean, I didn't pick up on it myself. I just sort of thought it was a strategy, you know, applied to the movie where, like, this is how we're going to approach these 2 different topics within the movie. But I mean, once somebody points out, like, no, like, these scenes were made by one director and these other scenes were made by another. And apparently Barbara Peters was pretty upset about it, but in the end, you know, her name remained on it.
Right.
But, you know, you told me, John, that Corman was known for giving carte blanche to his directors, so long as they were showing a lot of TNA.
Yeah, as long as they were producing what he wanted, he pretty much would let them do what they wanted, from what I hear. But yeah, I never heard that story before. I didn't realize that was the case. It didn't feel disjointed to me watching it. Like it was chopped up by 2.
It just felt like a different, like a strategy. Like it was on purpose.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay. Yeah. So diving in, like, totally diving in. When they start at the fishing docks and you've got all these, I mean, what I can only describe as a bunch of, like, beer swollen rednecks, you know, going out and doing their fishing thing. And then they have the younger Native American guy come out, Johnny Eagle, who is, let's face it, fucking awesome. I mean, he is like he's kind of the movie's badass, if you really think about it. He is the movie's badass. You know, and but I was kind of struck by, like, out of the gate, like, really out of the gate, they have there's this profound, and I don't even want if I want to call it racism thing, but there's this, like, like, everybody's supposed to hate this guy, but, like, you can tell, like, kind of out of the gate that, like, Slattery is just this, you know, fucking bushy-haired, mullet-wearing fucking redneck guy who is just, you know, he's just going to be a dick through the entire movie. You can kind of tell.
Well, early on in the movie, they set up that all those dogs get murdered except for the Native American guy's dog. And so all the hit guys think that he's the one who killed everyone. For some reason, they think he just went crazy and killed everybody's dogs.
Which is, I mean, this movie, like, was strong enough to do 2 really, you know, taboo things, which was not even just killing a dog. Like, it killed a bunch of dogs. And then secondly, it killed a kid, like, right away. So, I mean, you always have to appreciate it when they throw a kid to a monster right in the first.
Well, and that whole scene, did anybody get, like, as they're on the boat and they've got the stuck net, whatever else, did anybody else get a Jaws vibe?
Oh yeah, of course.
Definitely.
The block and tackle at the end of the pole, and they're pulling and things are going to break and whatever else. That was totally a Jaws.
And they were kind of
playing.
playing.
I mean, I think
they were kind of playing the music,
Right.
The sort of not the Turner music, but that sort of upbeat adventure music.
What's it? James Horner? Is that
no,
his name? No.
John Williams.
Well, no, she's talking about the composer.
The
Oh,
composer
for this movie, I was thinking
that's
of
James
Jaws.
Horner. Yep, yeah.
Is it James?
John Williams
Yeah,
is Jaws.
this is his
Yep.
first movie, one of his first movies, and the special effects was done by the guy who did The Thing, and it was like his first movies too, one of his first movies too. So it's like this, like I was saying, this movie has fucking layers.
Yeah,
it's interesting as fuck. So, but I mean, like, no, to your point, I mean, you know, they have this element of these are. They present the good guys and the bad guys, and the bad guys are the ones that are racist and trying to also start that cannery, which incidentally is where all the issues started from with growth hormones for salmon. Hey, let's not. I don't care.
It's basically piranha.
Exactly.
Because because
but
the
salmon,
creatures
but
are
with salmon.
prehistoric
Yeah.
in the movie. So it's literally, which is so funny because like throughout Aquaphobia, you know, it feels like just about every week we're talking about like, oh yeah, like this movie was offered to Joe Dante to direct, but he turned it down. Humanoids from the Deep was also one of those movies. You know, much like Alligator was. Go figure. You know.
Yeah, the whole.
Well, but this movie, when it comes to creature features, I mean, it's, and I get it. This one is a bit on the fringe, and there's a couple of reasons as to why it's on the fringe, but it's, you know, same year as Alligator. I mean, it's, you know, only a couple of years, well, a couple, 3, 4, 5, 6 years after Jaws, but I mean, it has a lot of the same elements where, you know, they're setting up this big, like this is what's going to happen later thing. I mean, because like the boat explosion in the first probably 15 minutes of the movie. The surprising thing is the boat explosion is really not that big a deal to the people of like this cove.
It happens all
They're just
the time.
like, well, that happened. Yep, just it blew up and nobody survived.
Yeah.
So we should have a party. That's what we should do. We should have a big party celebrating whatever.
I didn't notice that.
You know,
You're right.
Yeah, the no-ho salmon days or whatever, or as that one report calls them, the salmon days. Yeah,
I was just gonna.
But it was just kind of unbelievable. I mean, like it's supposed to be a small town, right? So
It's
in a
big
small
enough to
town, you would
ignore
think
a couple
that something.
Mm-hmm.
Well, exactly, but in this small town, it's like you'd think people would just be like, "Wait a minute, time out.
Should we go check
We
on
should
the rest
probably
of the
like
family?
investigate."
It's the same case for Jaws. I mean, nothing was going to stop the 4th of July celebration.
Exactly. Yep.
But that was
On
gonna
Amity
go
Beach.
down in
Yep.
LA. This is
Yep.
like Little Mendocino, not even. This is Noyo. People come from over 50 miles to go to their festival. But I was gonna say I really like that scene, the opening scene with the explosion, particularly because at first you see this sort of abusive dad with his like little like what I'm assuming is like a 10-year-old boy, and at first I'm thinking like, oh, leave him alone, just leave the kid alone. But then the kid is such a fuck up. I mean, like he's pouring gasoline, doesn't really secure the cap, and I'm like, Jesus Christ, get it together, kid. And then he immediately dies, and I was like, well, that's what you get.
Yeah, but the kid was like the captain of the boat. He was like
he was doing everything.
He was doing everything. They're having like a little kid do all the work on the boat.
Hey man, that's boat living. Although I really enjoyed that, not the captain, but I guess the driver, the navigator had like that nice fisherman beard, no mustache thing going on. Mm-hmm. You don't see that a lot.
No, definitely.
Yeah, okay. I'm picking up what you're putting down. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, just well, yeah, but then even when the kid goes in the water, one of the things that I noted, it was like the blood that came out. That was such great blood. That was just such
nice
great,
thickness,
vibrant blood.
The color didn't get like diluted too quickly.
The Jaws effect.
Yeah, it was just fantastic. Yeah. But it's like, even with the creature being caught in the net, it's like, nobody still really knows what's going on, So it's like, you have the block and tackle from Jaws. It's getting stretched and bent and whatever else. And then it's like all this stuff happens. And it's like, let's tie this up to the cleat. And it's like, if you ever watch Jaws, you've heard the word cleat about 900 times. But then when everything happens, it's like the one guy comes stumbling out with his flare gun, and it's like he trips and falls, and then just, it's like all is forgotten, and let's go on to our party.
I like how in the net, I was wondering how this movie was going to introduce the creature, because in The Creature from the Black Lagoon, they did a lot of hand stuff where it's like, here's my mitt. Oh, here comes my mitt again. They do that for like the first 10, 15 minutes of the movie before they show the creature. But and they did
Very
this
reminiscent.
One, they did this
completely
in
agree.
this movie for about a couple minutes. They show them pretty quick, but I did like the little nod. In fact, it's a big nod. I mean, this whole movie is, what if the creature from the Black Lagoon could fuck?
What if there were multiple creatures?
Oh, and incidentally, this is supposed to be hundreds and hundreds of creatures, but they only had 3 suits, and only one of them was really good for the camera. The rest had to be like from a distance. So I thought that was pretty hilarious too.
Yeah, and he still couldn't see for shit.
Yeah.
which is why, like, any time there's a rape scene and, you know, there's just... I'm not going to say flailing, but a lot of, like, blind grabbing, you know? So it's just, like, a teenager who doesn't know what the fuck they're doing.
A lot of pawing.
A lot of pawing. They know to go for that brassiere top.
Well, that's... Well, but to Holly's point about how when those scenes pop up, the men are just majestically murdered, and the women... The creatures come in with their claws and they just are surgical in removing their tops.
Yeah, they're so good at it.
They're surgical. Just like, boom, boobs. And it's like, but the guys are like dead and bleeding on the side. I love that part of it. I just love it. It's just like, because if I was a creature with like elongated 2x4 arms, that's exactly what I would do.
Those arms are so long. How do they have so much dexterity?
Yeah. So they set up a mystery of the murdered dogs and the Native American guy who may have done it, and then there's like a big argument in the clubhouse.
He gets beat to shit by the guy in the perm.
Yeah, he
gets like my father-in-law.
And just to jump ahead real quick, he gets beat up and then has a black eye throughout the entire movie.
Chinatown style.
Yeah, we were thinking it was like Chinatown, basically. Because in
continuity, right?
In every movie, if somebody gets a black eye or an injury, it's gone within a couple of scenes, and then they're reset back to normal. But they actually kept the continuity of this guy's black eye throughout the entire.
I know you brought it up like 3 times. I was like, shit, we should talk about that then.
It threw me off. I'm so used to injuries disappearing from characters in movies that when I kept seeing it, I got thrown off because I thought something had happened that I missed. I was like, why is his face so messed up?
It's either that or they forgot what side that they had it on, and then they do the opposite.
Didn't it get worse? I feel like in the next scene, which was the scene where they go off to that little cottage in the middle of nowhere, it's way more swollen and like ridiculous. I was like, you should go see a doctor. Yeah. I think his eye's gonna fall out. but no, it gets better, I guess.
No, I know. I was trying to pay attention to some of like the details of this movie, and especially when the people were looking for the dog, and then they kind of found it on the beach. But then they hard cut to all of the rednecks pulling into town, and they have their pickup truck and it's loaded full of beer, right, for the fishing boat. So I paused this scene and I counted the cases of beer in the back of that truck. If my math is right, there were 40 cases of beer in the back of that truck for like 6 guys on a boat. And I'm like, you know what? I like to drink, but holy shit. 40 cases of beer?
Well, God, see, here's the thing. They weren't catching any fish. They needed to do something, right? Like...
Well, no, I'm down with the fishing and drinking thing, but 40 cases of beer for 6 dudes?
That's a little excessive.
That's 8 cases of beer per dude for like how long?
I mean,
like a couple of days?
6 cases of beers.
Yeah, Jesus, yeah. No, I mean... Yeah, and then like you jump ahead a little bit, yeah, and then like all of a sudden all the dogs are dying, and it's like every dog dies except for John.
That's just because he doesn't hang with those guys.
Well, no, I agree with that too, but it's like then they're like, well, you know what? Guess what, boys? We got a problem, you know, and so then they jump a little bit more ahead, and all of a sudden you are looking through the window into the bathroom of a very scantily clad young lady. Like, and it looks like it's Valentine's Day. That's what I was guessing. I thought it was Valentine's Day. I'm not sure if you guys caught that. She got the kind of red and black and was just like, you know, and that made like next to no sense to me. Which is fine. It's you know, it's kind of a B horror movie. That's just, there's some things that just don't make a ton of sense. there was something about the meat fork that she had when she was walking through the house.
The blonde in
that was just.
What happened with that?
She was the one that was dating the dude in the cutoffs on the beach. And then he got dragged and killed, and then she got taken and raped and impregnated.
Oh, that's right. Okay.
Oh, and my favorite part too is like they're frolicking in the water, and I'm like, hold the phone. Is this not Mendocino? Is that fucking water not fucking freezing? It was.
I think they didn't want people to realize that. So Roger Corman and they would have been in LA in Southern California, which has warm beaches and sunny skies and everything. But in Northern California, where this movie is filmed, it's going to be gray skies and cold outside in the waters.
Think Murder, She Wrote. She was always in a fucking sweater. Although, I'd pay good money to see her in a swimsuit.
And the water's going to be like...
Gotta love Angela Lansbury. Gotta love her.
But the water's going to be like 45, 50 degrees.
Yeah, and there's some good actors.
Like, you don't really frolic in the water or on the beach in that bikini there.
I was watching like a little mini documentary about this movie, and apparently the makeup artist had to go and fix the actress's lips because they turned blue from the cold water.
Yeah, they were shooting at like 7 o'clock in the morning.
And so he had to go and like make them like, human lips again. So that was pretty hilarious.
And you can see, what's funny is that you can see that it's not a traditional warm beach environment. It's all trees and fog.
And guys in puffer vests.
Yeah, and everybody's wearing flannel. Everybody's wearing flannel and down vests, as you did in the 80s.
Except for anybody under the age of 25.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, they were all in bikinis, and it was so cold you could like hang your keys on their nipples when you walked in the house. Yeah, you just be like, okay, I'm home.
I'm sure
home,
Corman
honey.
loved that. He's like,
just hanging.
More.
Yeah. Well, I did, so I was okay with it. But I mean, that was kind of, if you followed the whole movie, though. I mean, that was kind of one of their themes for the whole thing. It was like, and I think you nailed it. Like all the guys always had flannel and puffer vests on. They were always dressed really warm, and all the ladies were like, "That's fine out here. It's absolutely fine."
I guess I'll throw on a shirt if I have to.
But it's probably also the difference between the stuff shot by the original director and then the stuff added on.
That is true.
Probably all.
Although even the stuff from the original director Barbara Peters, like I think I identified only like 1 or 2 women that were below the age of like 30. I'm sorry, above the age of like 30. So there was like the mayor's wife, who was an elderly lady, and then at the party scene there were, I'm assuming 1 or 2 because I'm not quite sure I saw them. And so like all of the women, I mean, again, this is very typical of movies anyway. Like, all the dudes are in their 50s and 60s, and then all the girls are in their mid-20s, right? But that's why I was, when you're growing up and you're watching these movies, all you see is the sex and not the connotations. And so you get real excited, and you get real, excited about the horror and the nudity and the sex, and like, oh my gosh, what if a fish man had sex? But then like I was watching it again, and like this movie's a little problematic. I mean, like, oh my gosh. That's
just called living your best life. That's what that's called. Just living your best life. I mean, because even when they get onto the so they go and then they're forward a little bit, and they're at the big like the first big town party that they've had after all these weird happenstances, and they're introducing the cannery people, right?
Yeah, Canco.
And
what an original name.
Yeah, exactly. Well, and the mayor of the town introduces the chief scientist lady as a great little scientist. She's just a great little scientist. I mean, and I'm not here or there on things, but I'm like, that might be one of the most misogynistic things I've ever heard in my entire life. She's a great little scientist. Wink, wink, you see her ass. Like, wow. I mean, no, well, exactly. Yeah. And then they have all this music, and it's like, you have this little like banjo band that's just like, and it's like, really in life, nothing sets a tone like a banjo, right? I mean, just nothing sets a tone. But then it's like you have this like younger couple who's out in the parking lot, and it's like they're in the back of a pickup truck with a topper, and this guy's getting set to, and it's like, so I'm thinking to myself, if I'm in my city you know, and they're having a big festival, the first thing that I'm going to do is park my car right next to the town hall.
City.
And
you're in the town of
and I'm gonna
population 3,000.
Which is probably a legitimate argument, but at the same time, I'm thinking my first thought is I'm not going to plow this shit in front of City Hall. I'm just not going to do it.
Especially is that Eric?
It's just too much. Yeah.
And
yeah. I mean, it's just crazy, you know. And then they go on to talking about as soon as Johnny Eagle comes in and he's got his dog, which is awful. Honestly, just watching that, it was just awful. And I'm like, I'm really hoping that wasn't an actual dead dog.
I really doubt it. That'd be really rough. I need a dead dog stat. Well, sir, we have a live dog.
But again, small town, whatever else, it doesn't seem like it would be that tall of an order to order up a dead dog. Just it doesn't seem like it's that much of a stretch. But then they talked about doing things. We're gonna do things by the law, right? And that I think is where the big good versus bad comes in. This is where we kind of start that.
You're supposed to build a lot of respect
go
for
outside.
Johnny Eagle because he's oppressed, but yet he will stick by the law, and he wouldn't hurt your dogs, but you would hurt his dog. Yeah. So they're painting him as this. I thought it would have been. He was a pretty big character, of course, but considering the build-up, I would have sort of assumed a little bit bigger role. And in fact, didn't you also say I don't know who the star is in this show.
There's no main character.
Not even Troy McClure.
Not Troy McClure.
It's the humanoids. The humanoids are the star of the show. They really are. They get the most screen time by far.
Yeah, they have the most
screen time.
But
Yep.
Yeah, and they're not getting their lights punched out after fucking in the back of the pickup.
And to be honest, they get laid the most too. So.
They do.
And also that pickup sex scene, I always thought it was such an awkward scene where you're making out with this girl, you get into it, and then she's like, "Hey man, I think there's somebody outside. I think there's a problem." And he's like, "Shut up!" And I was like, "Holy fuck! Don't you want to be nicer to the girl?"
Oh no, I've totally been there. When there was somebody outside, guess what? It was a cop. So it's like you had to stop and be like, well, shit, okay, party's over. Yeah, I mean, it's not just roll your eyes and go, come on, baby. Well, yeah, exactly.
And the town hall is sort of weird because it's sort of like a bar, restaurant, town hall where everybody hangs out all the time.
That's hilarious. You know what? That makes a lot of sense.
I mean, in a town like that, there probably is just the one place where everybody hangs out, basically. But
no, totally. But that town hall and then the ensuing fist fight that they have. Did anybody else get a little bit of a Footloose vibe from that? Yes. The end of Footloose. It's just nobody actually really got hurt, and we didn't really actually settle anything. But I feel like I got a little bit on top of it, okay, all right. Well,
it's just a couple of punches, even though it was 4v1 against Johnny Eagle.
Well, yeah, exactly. Yeah, it was 5-on-1, and then Jim steps in and Jim starts punching everybody. Well, and then the poor kid in the back of the truck who's just trying to get leg got popped in the chops just because he opened the door. Let's go down.
I love how 30 minutes later the sheriff comes out. All right, everybody, quit it. Jesus.
Yeah, knock it off. Yeah, 2 shots in the air. That's enough, boys.
And if I remember right, too, it was that whole situation was allowed to go on for a really long time, and everybody was out there watching it. Yep. And then the sheriff just sort of intervenes after a while, he's just been
it's a long while.
Watching.
It's my wife said something was going on out here.
Totally.
But. That was interesting. And then I guess that wasn't the big... that was just a party. It wasn't the big festival. It was just a pre-party. Or that might have been the memorial service for the explosion that happened on the bay earlier that day.
Yes, that's exactly what it was. It was a memorial service.
That was nuts. That was fucking nuts.
But definitely they were trying to get that feel of Jaws with the small town, the small fishing town. Of course, the theme with these movies from this era is that everybody's trying to make their version of Jaws.
Everybody's trying to get a piece. And you know what? Who could blame them, right? I mean, that's exactly what happens. One movie makes it really big, it just becomes a format for everybody else. And because people still enjoy it. I mean, honestly, we were just talking about the creature features at Grindhouse. You were saying got overlooked, and yeah, a lot of these have been really fantastic. I mean, Piranha's really great. Alligator's been really great. Like, it's just, it's it makes sense.
And Jaws, I mean, being kind of the big first blockbuster.
Yeah.
Everybody was like, "Oh my God, we could make millions of dollars by doing our version
with a very little budget. We just got to sell the sex."
Exactly.
And that's the thing. Jaws didn't sell sex.
No.
Yeah, not at all. So this is Humanoids was like, it's like Jaws but with boobs.
And something that really occurred to me when I was watching this movie was that, so I'm not a huge fan of the Friday the 13th movies, but those movies were very much targeted by the MPAA, the ratings board that rates movies. And they would constantly have to cut out sex and violence from those movies to get them to rated R from rated X. And when you watch those movies, those early Friday the 13th movies, the first 3 or 4 of them, there is far less sex, nudity, and violence than in this movie. And I sort of feel like their focus was so much on those Friday the 13th movies that a movie like Humanoids was able to slip right under the radar and get all kinds of violence and gore.
And there were so many boobs.
I mean,
like, in my life, I've never shown boobs to a ventriloquist, and yet this happened in this movie. That's fucking nuts, man. Those are some really nice boobs.
That whole scene, I'm just thinking, this would never play out in real life.
No.
I don't think ventriloquists have.
Yeah, do you want to see? Do you want to see my dummy? Do you want to see my dummy?
It just makes me think of like the quote, like, I could make it talk. It's so bad.
Exactly. Oh yeah, that was.
It would have been funny if he was.
Oh my God.
The puppet, and then the humanoids took a cue.
The humanoids tried to have sex with his ventriloquist doll. They were trying to have sex with everything else.
Not basically. Everything, just that really attractive. Which, incidentally, there's no way in such a small town there's so many hot, like, 20-year-olds.
That just made me think. I never thought this. That made me think of a really horrifying concept.
What's that?
This didn't occur to me, and I almost don't even want to say it, but I'll let you. I'll imply it so that you can.
Just say it, John.
Okay, so if the humanoids from the deep, see, their main goal was they were kind of like having sex, and they were having sex with the women. And the first thing we see in the story is all the dead dogs. Does that mean that the humanoids from the deep?
We're trying to have sex with the female dogs?
We're trying to have sex with the dogs and killed them?
That's a long shot.
I mean,
No, not at all. Not at all. I think it was dogs. No, the dogs were protectors.
Yeah,
That's what
they were.
And so it was basically taking out the castle guard, taking the castle guard out. That's what they were.
Thought that, they were just the alarm system that they were taking out.
The humanoids killed them so that they could get to the.
But you know what? I want to bet. I wouldn't put it past them. I bet they tried. You're right. I bet they had. I'm sure that's like the one.
We can't assume that the humanoids
possibly, but that's just weird.
First of all, can we not normalize
somehow more weird than being a sea creature raping guy? But yeah.
The reason that I was calling this movie problematic is not just like because we were having this conversation on T earlier about you're like rape revenge movies have a lot more explicit rape scenes, and I was like yes, but there's like the revenge part of it, like this like movie kind of like it just kind of makes it very kind of casual that like also they get raped. And so, you know what I mean? It's such a casual approach to rape that I was like, this sits kind of wrong.
Well, part of it too, though, is just like they don't stay on it, because in this one, it's you see like the 2-3 seconds, whereas opposed to like Last on the Left or I Spit on Your Grave, it's a very lengthy scene.
But
to really drive the nail home every time.
They're focusing on the horrifying fact of rape. And this is even more horrifying because you're talking about like humanoids from the deep, but yet it's like very sexy. Look at these boobs, like that kind of shit. Which
I
is
have a
very
feeling-
typical too, which is like, you know.
I mean, the thing is, and not to make excuses for it, but I feel like they were just not thinking it through.
No, not at
Basically,
all. Yeah.
Roger Corman was like, "Hey, we
Boobs.
need to get more boobs and violence into this, and so how
Yeah.
can we do that? Hey, what like the monsters
Yes.
pull their shirts off,
Yeah,
and
exactly.
they want to have sex."
But also, that kind of speaks to the very casual approach.
Yeah. And the fact, and it speaks to the time that this movie was made,
Yes.
where they were like, "Hey, here's an easy solution that we can get more boobs into the movie. We'll just have the monsters go after the women and be trying to hook up with the women."
Yeah.
It's such a simple idea.
And then, like, if you follow that track through the whole movie, it's like, okay, raped, sequestered, presumably continuously raped, and then has a monster baby that comes out the abdomen, like
Alien.
Like, this lady's having a really bad day. All right, I wish it was Johnny Eagle just getting his dog killed. You know, I'm just saying.
And that.
Well, going to the. Oh, go ahead.
I was
John.
just going to say, yeah, I'm just going to reiterate they obviously they wanted to do their Alien tribute and have the baby burst out of her stomach.
But like you were saying, you know, it is a lot of like it was a very casual approach to that, and even a lot of movies and directors have been called out because of that, you know, in recent years. And Sam Raimi like had a really good sort of apology for it, just saying like, you know, it wasn't like a thoughtful moment, and he was like, and because of course the dendrophilia and Evil Dead, which is why I know that word.
Well, but I mean, a lot of these horror movies have evolved as time has gone on. But like, if you go to like one of the things that I caught in the dummy scene when they were in the tent on the beach, so this guy's just kind of playing his thing, and she's taking it off, and forgive me for saying so, she had a fantastic pair of feet.
She had such an amazing rack.
Absolutely, a beautiful pair of feet.
I felt like she was not even of my same size. I was just like, what? Why?
Yeah, so there was a moment though where so the creature starts ripping through the tent. Did you guys see the dummy's eyes roll?
No, I missed it.
The dummy actually kind of went like looked over like, what's going on? You know, and this is like after the guy has been, to your point, Holly, horribly murdered. Like magically, you know. And of course this girl, she's already like completely naked, and she just like takes off running down the beach, just jiggling all over the place, which was honestly fantastic. But she's running all over the beach. She's running everywhere, and then just runs smack dab into one of these things. And it's like, I'm sorry, I've been on a beach, and honestly, like, how the fuck did you not see that thing coming?
There's nothing else there.
Like, yeah, that's
yeah. It's like, yeah, there's rocks and seaweed and like a cliff. How did you not see the big 4-foot long armed monster going? Bleh. How did you not see that?
Yeah, you could understand like running through the woods and like tripping over small branches, but like when you're on the beach and just running into like this giant sea monster.
Like, I guess.
Yeah, one of those cinematic cheats where just because the camera can't see it, you know, doesn't mean that the character shouldn't be able to see it.
And it's amazing that like there's so much between the nudity and the rape, like that is so distracting, but there's actually a straight up like fucking plot to this movie. I mean, Johnny Eagle's trying to stop the cannery from opening up. And
the whole subplot about the cannery and everything.
Which I guess it didn't. I mean, once you kill off, well, it stopped mattering after the humanoids attacked the festival, because then Johnny and perm evil dude, he had a perm.
Slattery.
Thank you. They became friends. You know, they were like they helped each other and shit.
Yeah.
Oh, we should hang out. Yep. Yeah, they did. They definitely had that vibe. Well, but I mean, even after the whole beach scene, and then they go on to when, you know, Johnny wants to take fucking blonde cut off guy and his girlfriend back to his place to like eat steelheads and do all that. But then you have Slattery and we'll call them his goons, just like, you know what, we got to go up here, and they're just like they're in a boat, just like they're literally like chugging beers and tossing them off the side. Like, probably part of that 40 case that they had earlier.
Tossing beers.
Yeah, but then they get to the tossing. Okay, that's a thing apparently. But then they get to the to the shed, or like the shed. That's not right. But to where Johnny lives out on the sticks cabin. Yeah, right. And they start firebombing and doing whatever else. And then the jean shorts guy is like, there's a spot where he just like he manages to climb out of the water, but then like he actually like brains this thing, and they kind of like start fighting back. And that was like, for me, that was the point in the movie where it's like, okay, these people might actually have a chance.
Because their brains are so exposed that you just have to hit it really good once.
Yeah. There's a spot in the movie where the great little scientist lady talks about the size of the cranium, and it's like, I'm not an expert, but if I'm like, I'm going to go for something, I'm going to go for the biggest target. And they've got like 2 bowling ball sized head.
It looks like squishy brain things. Yeah, just hit that.
Yeah, exactly. And it's like, yeah, I should hit that. That's probably, I'm not going to shoot him in the chest. I'm going to shoot him right there.
If that was a video game, that would be their weak point.
Well,
yeah, it would glow. It would glow red. Like, I should shoot that from here. Yeah.
And if I'm not mistaken, didn't she also have some lines about the fact that their brains were so big that obviously proportionally they must have been like super intelligent?
If they were so smart, why didn't they woo the women?
Well, exactly. They're just kind of monsters that stomp around, grabbing people and killing people and stuff.
If they were so smart, why did they start a sex cult?
They're not that smart. Yeah.
Well, because dinner out takes time and it's expensive. That's why. So
sex cults.
It's just easier to be rapey, apparently. I just
They they had like a massive like huddle. They're like, okay, guys, we've been working this out. I think we can just like take them, just drag them back.
Well, so then Johnny Eagle sends the one lady back to town in his truck, right? And she's being attacked all over the place. And there's a spot where she slams on the brakes and the creature like rolls off. I don't know if you guys caught this, but then it's like when the creature stands back up, they actually took the same snippet of film and rolled it back.
Just reversed it.
Like, because his tail like rolled back up and he was like,
I totally missed that too.
I didn't notice that.
Oh my God. Like, guys, come on. Yeah.
I didn't notice that.
Yeah. I mean,
one thing I did notice about the creatures is that they did look pretty cool. They were pretty good makeup.
Those big mouths were so unnerving.
Mm-hmm. But the only weird, wacky thing about the makeup was that they put peat moss on the costumes.
A lot.
And it's like, I know what that is. Like, that's not... That's
I have that on my diorama.
Yeah.
Like, you're not fooling anybody gluing peat moss on the creature's suit.
Oh, God, yeah. No, absolutely, yeah. And, so then they get into, 2 things. First of all, so Gene Shore's girlfriend is being attacked, and and then eventually she goes off the bridge. Then they have to have the requisite exploding car scene, right? Because every car that crashes explodes. Because that's just because it's 1970.
Yeah, that's science.
Yeah, it's just science. Exactly. Yeah. But then they fast forward and they pop into town and they have this great what I've labeled as the meeting of the minds, and it's all the fucking rednecks that are like talking amongst them, like, we got to do something about this. And then Johnny Eagle shows up with jean shorts in his boat, and like he's obviously hurt. He's obviously very badly injured, and they're like, let's put him in the back of this truck. And the one lady she's flipping his head back and I mean, just like flipping it like he's a sand shark, just flipping him back and forth, and I'm just like, oh. And then when they put him in the back of an old Ford truck, and the Ford truck literally burns rubber out of town. I'm like, I'm not an expert, but I've never seen an ambulance burn rubber. So, you might want to be a little more cautious.
He might have a neck injury.
He's not going to make it to the hospital.
Exactly.
In one piece.
Yeah.
Well, maybe they thought they would just like snap him right out of it.
He's a young dude.
By jerking him around.
Yeah, and then they pop forward to where the scientist and our our protagonist Jim are like, we're gonna go fishing for this sea monster. And my first thought was like, can you fish for a sea monster? I mean, like, what do you use for bait?
Rufinol.
And my first thought was like, I thought, I honestly thought it was either going to be a roofie or it was going to be a slightly dirty bikini bottom. That's what I thought. like one that's been run for a day where people were, yeah. Oh, even better. Yep, exactly. We'll call it a bobber. Yeah. Yeah. But yeah, it's like, so.
Did you say you recently watched Creature from the Black Lagoon? Because that was I'd never seen the movie before we rated it on the show, and my absolute favorite thing about it was that's how they defeated the monster. They roofied the Amazon. It's just a fucking insane concept. But if you see that bag of Rufinol that they had, it made sense that they can make it happen. That was a lot of Rufinol.
Did they? I forget. Did they try something like that in this movie?
No.
Did they do anything like that? Or they just?
Nope, they didn't, because they jumped. They jumped like hardcore jump. They jumped from like, we're fishing for a sea monster to having the scientist now in the most booty short pair of wetsuits I've ever seen. Yeah.
Oh, I know. Definitely.
Well, I agree. I agree with that. Like, makes us all
and
misogynists.
I hate that trope of like,
but
I'm such a, and this is for both men and women scientists, not just. But I get really annoyed with I'm so distracted because I'm a scientist. I'm going to put myself in danger. Like, I just need to get a little closer.
With the camera.
Yeah, and that happens in so many movies, and it's so annoying. Maybe it's because I'm super risk averse. But I would have been on the.
Well, maybe, but she had
there's a zoom on this. It's fine.
Yeah, no, it seems
maybe, but she had a super hot Flash Gordon like costume, and it was
totally.
Yeah, oh yeah. I would have flashed her Gordon all day long.
Suits, and then she had the shorty really wetsuit, like the short pants and short sleeves.
But yeah, and I mean,
your mic's muted.
You're on mute.
Shit. Sorry. It was so profound. It's lost.
No,
Sorry.
Okay.
It's never coming back. Well, so then they, to Holly's point, they go to where she like was taking all the pictures, right? And they look at, and that's what she throws out the look at the size of the cranium moment. And it's like, well, how could you not see the size of the cranium? It's like two bowling balls glued to your head, like out of a brain jello mold thing. Like just.
And I don't know what the point of. Yeah. I'm not even sure what the point of them having big brains was. Like, it didn't really play into the story or anything.
Especially since they weren't very smooth. Like, they weren't
super
smart.
Well, but it was the humanoid part. That's what makes them different than the salmon that they were trying to farm.
What were the lady humanoids? Did they talk about that?
Other than having arms and legs and everything else, they were different from the
Because if they would have made this like an equal opportunity like rape scene, like that would have been kind of interesting. Like if they were like female humanoids, from the deep.
Who made it
with the men? Did you just see the women? Like that would have been kind of hilarious.
Yeah, but did you just say equal opportunity rape scene? Is there such a thing? I don't. Okay, well, I just wanted to clarify that because I'm like, wow.
I know I'm being problematic right now. These are good. This is a show we will delete in the not so far future.
Well, yeah. So she goes through all of that, but then she shows them all of those like what I kind of equated to like the black and white, like really old high school films of like tadpoles dividing and doing things like that. And it's what is happening? It's like I saw this and it was on a slide projector a long time ago, and I didn't like it then. So why would I like it now?
That's what they used to sell me mascara and maxi pads.
I don't know if I'm mixing this up with another. I don't know if I'm mixing this up with another movie, but did they have a scene with like some actually like really high quality microscope footage of cells dividing and the tadpoles becoming?
I mean, I don't know if it's high tech, but yeah, it was.
But I remember it looked kind of cool, right? Unless I'm mixing this up with something else.
No, you guys are talking about the same scene, but you didn't think it was cool. You thought it was very advanced. Scientific.
No, but I remember being sort of impressed that they must have been like, oh, we have this cool footage, we gotta use it. Like figure out a way to put this into the movie.
But yeah, I have to admit, like, one of my favorite, I think I say the words I have to admit. I'm going to stop doing that. I have to admit, one of my favorite things to see in creature features is we caught one. Let's dissect it.
Yeah,
I love that shit. Yeah.
They did that in this, right?
Oh, yeah, they did.
That's like in...
How come they didn't show the dick, by the way?
I know.
Incidentally, why did she find the dick? Why did she have to come up with this conclusion based on fucking, like, science footage? Couldn't they just, like, tear it apart and go, like, hey, guys, it's got gonads?
It's like an alligator. It doesn't have the visible...
Well, are they gonna... They opened up the sucker, though, didn't they? They didn't just, like peek under the skirt? No, they tore into it.
I think it would have a... Yeah, this thing would have had a dick. It would have had a great, big, huge, green, just venous, bulbous dick.
Exactly.
Yeah, because, I mean, well, how else? How are you going to get up into that?
Why is thrusting offensive if there's no fucking dick, right? Yeah, see, we're not going to be able to post this.
Yeah, and I mean, like, you know, like, to that point, too, like, really early on, after, like, the first creature sight, and there was literal, like, ooze or cum, basically, like, everywhere.
Right, and the guy's, like, touching, he's like, what is this? It's crazy.
Yeah, he's touching it, it's like a
with his bare hands.
On his fingers. But I think the part that made me laugh the most in Humanoids from the Deep is when they're trying to catch the humanoids by going out on the boat and fishing it, you know? You have Doug McClure who, like, pulls in like a salmon and he just, like, throws it down. And he's like, you know, any other time I would have been happy. Because that was probably, like, only the second fish that they actually caught in the entire movie because they've been having so many issues, which is part of the reason why they have Kanku in the first place, because they're basically there to, like, make sure that the fish are bigger, they're faster, they're twice as plentiful, you know, they're providing jobs and, you know, everything for this community, but, you know, it doesn't necessarily pan out all that well because of, you know, all of the, like, modification in regards to the actual humanoids in this.
But I also like the fact that they make a point of showing that these things are intelligent, and then their genius plan is to fish for them. Like, they would fall for that.
Sorry, that's great.
Maybe it's the fact that even as intelligent as they are,
have that
it's irresistible.
Oh my gosh!
They're just like, it's like a cat with
is
the
that a
laser.
worm?
Yeah, they're just like, I gotta chase it. I have an instinct.
It's hilarious.
I mean, John, you say that, but, like, I remember growing up, and there were a couple of times as a kid where I'm like, all right, I'm gonna go fish it, and, like, you would, like, pull back and you'd go to, like, throw it, but, like, it really wouldn't go that far, and you would end up, like, hooking yourself. You know, so, like, I could just think, like, the humanoids, you know. There might be a situation where they just randomly, like, stumble into the hook. But, like, chances are it probably wasn't going to happen at that point. Because, you know, they were a little bit more advanced than I was.
You know, and I was going to say, segueing onto another part of the movie, I really enjoy it when creature features don't hide the fact that there's creatures for too long. I brought this up with Alligator too, where there's some movies that sort of make it so that only one character sees the creature, and then everybody thinks they're crazy for a really long time, and then you're like, oh fuck, this is so fucking unnerving. So I really enjoy it when creature features, they have a little bit of mystery at the beginning, but then bam, everybody knows what's up. And you know, you get that really a big sense of that, of course, at the festival, where you think it's just gonna be one little dude or maybe like three dudes like walking on the fucking pier. No, they're tearing through the freaking, like, you know, boardwalk and shit.
I wonder if that...
Well, the Corman has, like, the formula where it's like for the first half of the movie you don't really see too much of the creature, and then, like, 2/3 into the movie is when shit really starts to hit the fan, and, like, that's basically when we would hit the festival in this movie.
Yeah, but I mean, you still have the well, let's see, I guess the first time that you see the creatures, more than one person sees the creatures and then survives, would be with Johnny Eagle when they attack the cabin in the woods. Or, I'm sorry, the cabin on the swamp. Wait, no, the cabin on the beach in Mendocino. Beautiful, Mendocino County. YOLO. No. Oh, okay, thanks.
Well, but this is also the point where, like, they bring the, like, somebody had a body bag handy which is just a little weird to me.
Yeah,
like,
they had just a body bag.
Yeah. And it's like, everyone's like, hold on to your britches. And they just unzip this thing. And everyone's like, oh my God. And it's like, see what we're dealing with? And it's like 3 seconds later, boom, the boardwalk's exploding.
Yeah, they didn't get a lot of heads
and that
up.
was
pretty fun.
No, and that was what, but that was kind of awesome though. It's like you have the guy from the DJ. He's from K Fish Radio, which is honestly kind of fun. But it's like in my notes I have, it's like I've been to a pier before, and they're pretty sturdily built, So I don't think that these things could just explode
Not
to the
with
docks
their heads
like they
either,
did.
because their heads are so soft.
Yeah.
Well, it's all brain,
all brain.
right? Because they just they go, I'm going to bust through and just go, boom, and then that'd be it. I mean, that would have been like way easy. But then they have so much of this. Like, there's a scene where they're on the merry-go-round,
Yeah.
and it's like as the camera is turning, and it's like there's a creature eating somebody, then there's a dead guy, then there's another creature
And then
eating
there's a girl
somebody,
on
there's
a
another
little
dead
horse
guy.
just looking behind her.
Yeah, and she's just going, yeah, just absolutely crazy. But then they pivot and they go back to Jim's house, where his wife Carol is minding the child, whatever. And she does a lot of things that are like awesome. Like, she locks up the kid to protect him. But there's a point where she's like locking the front door, and it is the most complicated medieval lock I've ever seen in my entire goddamn life. Like, there's like 17 pins and like 3 ratchets.
But
whatever else. And she's just like,
we watched that too,
Like,
and the first thing that I thought when I saw that scene of her locking this medieval door with all of these freaking locks is like, but you still have gigantic windows in your living room that somebody could throw a brick through, and you just like pull the curtain
Or they
shut.
can just smash. They can just run through it.
I was like, I guess, like, what's that?
Yeah,
I don't know.
yeah, exactly. But the screen door is still wide open. So, so good on you, but you missed a couple of steps.
And I have to point out too that this, like, where the story starts to fall down is with the wife and the kid and Troy McClure, because he's the husband, she's the wife, and it's sort of like Jaws, where you have the sheriff and the wife.
A 30-year age gap.
But the thing that annoyed me was that the wife is in danger, and she's kind of going through her whole situation.
And he's completely unaware.
And he's completely unaware. He doesn't care, doesn't know, never enters the story.
He never thought about it.
Yeah, and it's like, it seems like the point of doing that would have been to have him be like, oh no, like, my wife's in danger, I need to like call her, or I need to get back to the house and help her, and that there should have been a scene where he rushes back to the house and helps her deal with the humanoids.
Well, apparently, and this is something, again, in that little documentary that I was talking about, like, people kept talking about, like, well, Corman really likes for women to take care of themselves. And, like, and, that was a big thing about, like, the beauty queen that fights one of the humanoids just barehanded and, like, kills him, or at least fends him off after getting her caught.
Well, and topless for the record.
And then
the beauty queen, she's topless when she's doing all of that.
What's
so
that?
I'm just saying, the beauty queen was topless when she was fighting.
Yes, she was.
So Roger Corman was still right there and present.
And so they're like, and so she mentioned that, and so did the lady who played the mom. And so there's that element, but so long as they're still under 25. Are we clear on that rule? But
well, they still had the weird. There was a weird moment where there was a lady in another, what I thought was another house, who was doing whatever she was doing, but then she like got into the shower behind like that weird smoked like shower door, and she was just all kinds of moving the planets around, But then it's like she just like kind of like disappeared.
Wait.
It's like kind
Are
of
you
like
talking about the shower scene behind the curtain?
yes,
That was supposed to be
close to the end.
wife.
Okay, well, you know what? I saw that wife in her.
You're right.
We'll call her
She said
film
no
debut.
to the scene. And they're like, "You got it." And
yeah,
got
she
somebody
did.
else.
Yeah, but I mean, she had some in that behind that smoked or that fog glass. She had some things that could support gravity behind that. behind that, and in real life, she was not. Yeah, well, I'm kind of picking up on that, but I mean, it's like, why did they have that scene where it was like these big shadows and it was like boom, like 2 Earths went by, but then it's like they have her pop out, and she's just like back to her normal average lady thing. And I was like, why was that even relevant? I mean,
I think
why
we
did we?
both know
Why did we have to have that? I just, well, yeah.
But
yeah,
you know,
okay.
again, in this tiny little documentary that makes me an expert in all things humanoids from the deep. So that actress that played the mom was there, and she was saying, "Oh, you know, they asked me to do this scene," and she said, "I don't do nude scenes." And she also mentioned how this was her first movie, so she was like, "I can't believe they bought that." And they were like, "That's totally fine." And then they just filmed it without her, which I thought was hilarious. But yeah, you're right.
Yeah.
Another
Yeah.
great bod.
Yeah. And so, you know, going back to the big festival on the pier, which honestly is kind of awesome. Like I've been to well, my in-laws are from Seattle, so there's lots of festivals on the pier. The one thing that was really funny to me was they had this weird ramp going up from the water line, and like it didn't seem to make any sense. Like what would people actually do with that?
You mean we're like
So they had
the whole scenes between Johnny Eagle and Slattery?
Yes, that ramp. That's the ramp I'm talking about. So they utilized it in a couple of different ways. Because first they had one of the creatures get like lit on fire, but then it like stopped, dropped, and rolled down the ramp into the water to like put its own fire out. But then it's like then they had more like creatures like they had a scene where a bunch of creatures busted through it and like wrecked this ramp. But then they keep going back to it, and then the ramp is in one piece. It's like so they kept jumping back and forth. Yeah, and that was, but like for Slattery, that was like supposed to be his redemption moment, right? I mean, I don't want to call it an arc, but that was like his.
Yeah, it was like I don't really hate you,
like,
Native American man.
And
well, but he saved the kid. He saved the kid.
Yeah, and then he gets saved by Johnny Eagle.
And then by Johnny Eagle, yeah, exactly. So it's like, and you can see, and this I honestly thought it maybe not like Oscar-winning acting, but whatever. The guy was just like. He had that look on his face like, I've been a fucking asshole this entire time. Like, I have been a fucking asshole. Yeah, it totally was, but it was hard hitting.
Yeah.
You know, where it was like, you could see it on his face. He's like, God,
that
I've
was
been
them
like this entire
squeezing
time.
in that part
like,
of every movie like that where you commiserate with your enemy because then there's a third enemy that you both have to team up to.
The bigger threat.
Exactly, the bigger threat. Usually in movies like that, this is a bigger, more extensive moment, right? Where it's like you have to work together over weeks, but in movie time, minutes. And then you overcome something. This one, it was just kind of like, let's just pop that in there. It worked. I liked it. I like.
Well, but then the other,
the
other piece of it though is like you have Jim out on the boat with the great little scientist lady, and they're out there and they're dumping gas and they're doing all these things, and they
burn water.
They light these fires, right?
Which that's their genius plan.
It's like as good as roofing the Amazon. Yeah.
Well, exactly, but like the fires were completely pointless, other than showing the pop-in scenes. The pop-in scenes where you have a creature going in the fire, like they were like completely pointless. Like it did nothing. It was like it was easier to just like the townspeople finally said, you know what, hell with this. Let's get some 2x4s and let's bash these fuckers' brains in, and that's kind of what they did at the end. I mean, it was honestly it was a Halloween Kills moment. Well, it's like, you know what, we've had enough. Fuck
and
it, let's just go.
And
they did it.
Oh, I was just going to say that there was a lot of really interesting dynamics within the festival scene. So, I mean, you have all the different ways of attack that people are fighting back, but they even have this one scene where they all gang up on one guy, on one humanoid, and beat the shit out of him.
Yep.
And then, like, that's really weird because they're signaling mob mentality cruelty, but the humanoids are the bad guys that are raping like women. So it's like, why are you mixing all these fucking signals together?
Yeah, you almost feel bad for the human.
Yeah, like, why are you making me feel bad for this thing?
He's only looking for.
They killed a bunch of dogs, you know.
He's only looking for love.
No.
That's why you should feel sympathy for the humanoids, because ultimately they're just looking for love.
he's basically Cyrano de Bergerac, and he's just looking for love. Oh, I love it.
You know, he thought he would settle down in a small, quaint little town. You know, start a family and everything.
Have a bunch of tadpoles.
First of all, there's someone for
everyone who work the farm.
Like, don't tell me that there isn't some lady out there going like, yeah, man, I'll top that. Yeah, there definitely is. They just had to fucking put up an ad on Craigslist or something. Or it's 81, so the personals, I guess. The large, endowed sea creature seeking fertile female, preferably between the ages of 18 and 25.
Well, and did you...
Yeah, I'm okay with that.
Bring up the idea that their genius final plan was to set the water on fire?
Yes, that's what you missed. You were in the bathroom.
I had to run to the bathroom.
And then nothing happened.
And also just the silliness of setting the water on fire, trying to hurt creatures that can swim under the water. They're not really gonna,
they can just go a little down. Yeah, they can breathe underwater, so they can just go a little deeper.
It's not a big deal.
They can just enjoy the fireworks.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, it was totally pointless. But then even jumping back to like Jim's cabin, and Carol is like, she has her big butcher knife and she's walking around trying to do all of her things. And one of the things that I really thought was funny is it's like, so she kind of locks up the kid, keeps the kid away. I think everyone's probably okay with that. But then it's like she's wandering through the house and it's like not even 2 feet from where the kid's crib was. There was a bottle of drain cleaner just sitting
you are sincerely eagle-eyed.
And it was like...
No, I noticed
that. Yeah, and it was and she's just like... And she does all this, and it's like... And then somehow it's like Jim shows up and she's magically saved. And it was like, okay, sure.
So I noticed that, and that was funny because... you guys have probably heard of the idea of Chekhov's gun, where... In the beginning of a movie, you show a gun, and then later, near the end of the movie, somebody uses that gun. Yeah. And they showed that drain cleaner, and it flashed in my head. Oh my god, are they setting up using the drain cleaner? And then, like 2 minutes later, she uses the drain cleaner, if I'm remembering right. And I just remember thinking, like, that's the fastest Chekhov's gun setup and payoff. It was just like set it up and then pay it off, as though it were like a thing that they had done. As though they were planting seeds earlier in the movie, but really it was just kind of like, oh, maybe more of an afterthought or something. But no, yeah.
Well, maybe, yeah. But I mean, it's kind of like the whole. In the end, it's like Pavlov's dog or Schrödinger's cat, right? I mean, you have to. It's like you. On the one hand, you have things are trained and they understand what's going on, and then on the other hand, I have no idea what's actually happened until I am just butt deep in the situation. And jumping forward to like her salvation felt a little abrupt to me. It was just like she's just doing all these things, and all of a sudden, hey, look, we're back on the docks in the city.
Yeah.
And it's like. There's all these weird fires that have no reason to be there because the fire was in the water. And then the weird part was like, there was a lot of purple smoke. Did anybody see the purple smoke?
Yeah, that was in the recovery
what's
scene,
the purple smoke from?
Those were probably smoke
bombs.
Like coming out from like the carousel. Like I remember thinking like, what the fuck is that?
Yeah. And it's like, so they go through this and it's like, everyone's doing the blanket over the back. Like, hey, we survived. Everything's just great and whatever else. But then they jump in, like the one he talks to the sheriff. It was the sheriff he talked to, and it's like, where'd Dr. Drake go? And it's like, oh, she went back to the lab or whatever else, and things are fine. She did all she could, and then it's like she's sitting there fully gowned, and it's like it was almost like this is what she expected and was just kind of waiting for it, and she sort of like played the entire town the whole time. Like she was not horrified. She was not, oh my god, whatever else. It's like she was just waiting.
She's like, fuck no, I'm not going to the festival.
Yeah.
Well, she did go to the festival, but she went out on the boat and avoided all the problems. So she had that one. She had that one played, and she had that going for her. But then it's like they get to the very end, and I almost thought it's like, for as much as she was like, I hate this company, and I was trying to completely destroy them and let the whole world know what was happening. I almost think she was kind of like doing the chin stroke.
That
like,
was a Barbara
I'm just waiting.
move in Piranha.
Exactly right.
Where she was like, well, things are fine now. No need to worry. This was just an anomaly. Like, she's a scientist, but then it turns out she's like a corrupt official.
Well, exactly. And then you get to the end, and then all of a sudden we have our like alien moment. And it was like, and between the baby coming out, and then did you guys see the mom's eyes? Did you guys catch the mom's eyes?
I don't think so.
The mom has total zombie eyes, which is just weird, or the mom, the birthing mother, whatever. Yeah, has total zombie eyes. And it was like, and then the movie ends and it was like, I almost wonder if our Dr. Drake character, who was like, goes through the whole movie being like so forgiving and so wanting to expose this company for all the bad they're doing, maybe was like not.
Like maybe she was like that character in Aliens who secretly wanted to get the alien for the corporation to study.
She was Burke.
She was sent there to get an actual humanoid and bring it back to the lab. Yeah, Paul Reiser.
Exactly. Yep. Burke. Yeah, his name was Burke.
Totally.
Yep.
She had to get it for the lab.
Yep. Well, because she seemed overly absent at the end of the big, huge dock party scene, and very present.
You get the sense of like she's a scientist, so she's trying to warn people when she's shocked by it, but then once she processes and she understands, and now she has opportunity to not only explore but test, experiment on a new species. She's not letting that shit go.
Or she just wanted to be a mother, and that was her first opening.
Gross.
I can see it, but the vibe that I got was like this was her plan all along. That's what I got. That was her plan all along, just to see where it went, to follow it, and to be there at the precipice of whatever like the new birth of the new species was. That's what I got. Like, she just wanted to be ready because she was pretty dolled up at the end. She was all masked up and gloved up, and just be like, she got her speculum out, and she was like, "Let's see what's happening down here."
Not that she had to. The thing just burst right out.
Well, exactly. But she was prepared.
John was.
She's.
We were watching this. We watched this movie together last week, and you had the funniest line where the baby's about to come out, and he was like, "If this baby isn't extra humany because of the human lady, I'm going to be very mad." And then when it came in, I was like, "He's extra humany, John."
It has to be a hybrid, more human.
More human.
Yeah. It toned down the humanoid part of it. It took all the scales and shit and just made it just a little bit more. The brain pan was smaller. Everything was so. Yeah, I mean, but that's kind of what I think she was after
Cambridge
the whole time.
Yeah, we just don't know if it's less rapey.
No, probably not.
We won't know.
It's pretty violent.
Well, if it was more human, it was probably more rapey.
Turns out it was man.
That's just
I don't know if it was ever specifically said during the show so far, but they specified in the movie that these things wanted to have sex with women.
Yeah.
It wasn't just that they did that. The characters actually said this is the monster's intent is to mate with women. So they really they drove it home that these things were trying to have sex.
They were trying to make babies. They weren't just doing it recreationally.
Yeah.
Well, she said it, but it was an implication because what she said was that they had one of their storage tanks destroyed by a storm, and all these things got out into the ocean. These 3,000 salmon or whatever got in the ocean. But she was theorizing that now that they have these tadpole things or whatever the hell they were, because they aged and progressed so fast, she was theorizing that their philosophy now was like, we're so close to humanoid that we might as well mate with man because that's our best chance of propagating ourselves. Yep. So rapey, as John put it. Totally.
Well, there'd be lots of them. So that's the thing too, is really the movie doesn't really resolve anything because clearly there are still a lot more creatures out there in the ocean, and
I have to go to the bathroom. But do you want to give your Cthulhu speech now or save it?
Oh no, I was just going to say. I was also going to point out that these creatures are like deep ones, like we saw in Underwater, and that this story is really loosely based on a Lovecraft story, where actually forget the name of the story. I think it's The Shadow over Innsmouth, but it's a story of a small fishing town where deep ones come out of the ocean and mate with women and create hybrid fish people who live in the town, and the people in the town all kind of have gills and are partly fishy. But this movie is basically roughly based on a Lovecraft story, which also makes sense because Corman did a couple of Lovecraft stories.
Oh, cool.
He had a couple other movies that were based on Lovecraft stories and stuff. So
neat.
That was just a thing I was noticing.
Well, it was still made in an era where you can tell a good story. You can have, I think, what I would call a plentiful amount of boobs and muff. But still, you can tell one of those stories where it's like, this is something that, at least at the time, I think, because this is when we started talking about, GMOs and things like that, where people were afraid of the future. And this movie to me is being afraid of the future story, whether it be in your industry, whether it be of GMOs, whether it be of what people are going to do when things go to hell. Because I think John's right. This movie was not really finished. Right, it didn't tell the end of the story. It's like it's telling the next stage. So it's like it's almost like a precursor to the apocalypse. Like what's going to be the next thing? We're all ruled by 8-foot tall reptilian aliens that just rape our women and eat our babies and do whatever else. And it's like, well, okay, great. So where do we go from here?
Well, and to connect it to the other movies that we've talked about, this is almost like The Beach House, where this is sort of an inevitable transformation that's going to happen to humans. Like these things are going to come out and mate, and more humanoids are going to be born, and more fish people, and eventually we're all going to be fish people and go back to the ocean.
I prefer the Beach House approach because then it's just like you either stepped in something or you drank something or you ate something.
And it's like
here
drugs.
You're straight up getting like fucking traumatized.
Yeah.
That seems like a more abrasive way.
That's the rapey part though, where it's like, no, and I agree completely. It's like it's that whole societal shift / evolution thing. Like this is the next stage of things.
This one was just crass.
These things were just going brute force at it. Like I'm gonna force the issue,
Literally.
And again, the big giant like 18-inch long reptilian penis with the veins and whatever. I get it.
Like the dissection scene though, like that was like we talked about it a little bit, but like of course, I mean, she's showing all these slices of like cells. I'm like, why didn't you just show the schlong?
Well, I mean, if this movie
just flap it down,
and I would have been like, oh yeah, that's a problem.
Here it is.
Definitely going to try to rape somebody.
But that would really be the real wave that for this movie to kind of do its thing would have been for them to all have giant schlongs and be running, and you know how they do that thing when they run around with
their really long arms like
and have it just dangling between their legs, because
exactly
that is so much the focus of what the monster is and what it does,
and that would have really struck some fear in people.
Yeah, that it could have been like these are total like.
I mean, think about it. You're being chased by a monster, even if you're a dude and you see this gigantic schlong, like. You don't want to take any chances that you look appealing to this dude. So, yeah.
And we don't even know their biology. They may be able to successfully mate with
dudes. And then you get to, like, gestate a baby for 9 months or 3 weeks, whatever the fucking term is.
Totally. They could be reproducing with anything.
What a great movie that would be. Sorry, I don't mean to push it, guys.
It was like, it was like 3 days. But, I mean, calling things what they are, I mean, it's like, I like back then or even now, it's like, yeah, I'm this big giant thing. And it's like all of a sudden you get this big, like, like out in front of you. Most people would be intrigued.
Exactly. And I feel like this movie would be so much more complex because then the fear of rape isn't just about the women. It's like everyone, even the dogs.
Yeah,
and it'd be
even
like,
the dogs.
fuck. You know, like, and then everybody could feel the devastating fear of thinking that you might get raped.
Well, and it
That
could
would have
be-
been a fucking movie.
I'm guessing at least one of the humanoids probably was like ambivalent about things. It was like, look,
They
there's
don't
a
have
dude.
I mean,
I'm
I
not
guess
going
they
to kill
have
him.
paper, but they
I'm
don't,
gonna- I'm
they
gonna-
don't have
I'm gonna
gender
fuck-
roles.
Yeah.
Other than like what can
Well,
reproduce and what can't.
exactly.
They can
Well,
put
they're
BB
amphibians.
teeth.
So I mean, really,
Grindhouse, they might.
Well, and as we learned from Jurassic Park,
Nature finds a
amphibians-
way.
Nature finds a way.
life will find a way.
Amphibians
Life
can
will.
change sex and can reproduce. So there it is.
There it is, okay?
Just like
Call Jeff Goldblum. This is a new movie. Has to be made.
I can
No,
just
but what
imagine,
else did-
like, the whole time she's, like, going out with the camera. You know, she's just trying to, like, spot him in the wild, but only to get the side profile. That way, you know, from whatever angle she's at, it's not going to be completely in view. So then you just leave more to the imagination whenever she's selling all these pictures to, like, the local press.
Yeah.
To, like, you know, put on the newspapers,
think-
you know?
I think the humanoids from Deep could have one hell of a Tinder profile. I honestly think they could. Just be like, yeah. So it's like side shot. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah. I think they got it. Yeah.
Human.
Anyway, no. You know, from 80s, from like just straight up legit 80s horror, and like I said, this movie came out the same year as Alligator. So I mean, we're definitely in that like people trying to profit off of the like the Jaws wave, we'll call it. I mean, for the number of movies that came out that in those, in those years, it's like this one honestly was pretty good. I to this day, I still dig this movie, and I get the rapey part of it, and yeah, I still kind of have an issue with that. But overall, I mean, just I'm going to be a creature, and I am going to go out in the world, and I'm going to spread my love, as it were, as far as it was. Yeah, this one, I mean, there's some parts of the story that are a little hit and miss, you know, but like between Johnny Eagle, the whole cannery thing, you got the fucking racist redneck fuckholes. I mean, there are so many things in this movie that I think can speak to the times, and honestly, even now can speak to the times. This movie for me, it was really good.
It's a fun movie. It moves along at a good pace.
Decent acting,
And-
good pace, great setting.
It is funny though how what I can only think of him as Troy McClure.
Doug McClure.
Doug McClure.
But it is Troy
It
McClure.
seemed like they had him in the movie to be the main character.
Yeah.
And that's kind of his role. He's like a leading man in B movie.
Yeah, he's the most recognizable actor in the
Yeah.
movie.
But yet he has so little dialogue in the movie. He barely speaks and barely does anything. And it's so strange because it really seems like he was cast to be the lead character.
Yeah.
But then just
He's got a
isn't.
title role, yeah.
Which kind of makes me wonder if there was something happening behind
That's
the
a really
scenes
good
or
point.
something,
Maybe. Yeah.
where they didn't. Because, like I said before, there's really no main character in this movie, which is kind of funny.
Mhm.
Like it's an ensemble movie, but typically in an ensemble movie there will
at
be
least
one or two or more or three main characters, maybe. And I mean, you can say it's Troy McClure and the Native American guy.
Mhm.
Clearly, that's what they were trying to set up.
Yeah, but it got diluted quite a bit.
Yeah. And you can tell probably the original director had a real story in mind that would run through this, but it was very kind of spottily put together, like a lot of, not to be like snooty about B movies, but like a lot of B movies, they're reaching higher than they're achieving. They're reaching for the stars and falling short, but that's cool. Like, that's fine. And obviously we love these kinds of movies, but it's like, definitely an example of like shooting for a certain thing and then just being like, like we got monsters
Good
and
enough.
they run around. We set some stuff on fire and the monsters ran around and hit some people. There was some blood. And we had like the pier, the final kind of attack scene, which was the big chaos.
Big scope, and it was nice.
And you can tell they wanted that to be a very chaotic. Absolutely. It almost felt like the end. It reminded me of the end of American Werewolf in London, when everything goes haywire and it's chaos and people are running everywhere, but not quite up to that level. But still pretty well done, though.
Well, yeah, it's one of those movies where, to your point, John, it's like to have Jim be our main character, and he was basically irrelevant the whole entire time. He was still the main character because we all knew who he was, but he was irrelevant. And then you have the creature in second place, and then you have boobs in third place. I mean, those were our leading people.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, and oddly enough, I'm sort of okay with it. I mean, it's like I don't want to be a sexist pig, but there were so many pairs of perfect boobs in this movie. So many pairs of perfect boobs. I just like. It made me fall in love with the breast again. Like I'm in love with the breast again. It's just,
maybe
it's just
get
so
disillusioned
awesome.
with breasts that are not like quite so perfect as the ones from Humanoids from the Deep.
So you would rate this movie?
No, not at all. Not at all. I would say that I am just more in love with the breast period
that's sweet.
because of this movie. They're just because breasts are just awesome. You know, because they were a main character in this movie. They were a main character.
They really were.
It's seriously, Johnny Eagle, creature, breasts. That's what that's and that it's. You know,
I don't know if Roger Corman smoked cigars, but I imagine Roger Corman sitting there smoking a cigar and saying,
"More breasts.
We need more tits.
More tits.
More tits."
More gore."
I sort of figured at this point he was
out of here.
With this movie. I figured he was smoking opium and just being like, "So where are we again? What? California. Okay, so yeah. Anybody have a boat? Let's blow it up. Let's blow the boat up."
Get this girl in a bikini, sir. It's 50 degrees outside. I don't give a fuck. Bikini now.
Exactly right. Yep. Yeah.
Yeah. Get the makeup guy. We need a little more pink there.
Yeah.
You know, we need to add a little bit of color.
Well, and there was one underwater scene when the really awesome fit couple was out in the water making out, and the one guy dug his hand into her bikini.
God, that's right.
And pulled it halfway down and just grabbed her ass. I don't know what it was about that, but oh my God. It just was like,
thirsty Grindhouse.
This is what
that's what the kids are saying.
Well, I'm just saying it's like what being alive is all about. Like just being alive. Just getting a handful of that ass.
But I appreciate it. I like that you had this.
Yeah, well, and maybe you're right. You're probably right.
But no, it made you feel something, and that's cool.
It's funny that
and that's like the point of all these.
They had I forgot they had underwater shots in this movie because there was so little underwater shots.
There was like two. There was like the initial one, and then you kind of think like, oh, maybe it might
the beginning,
be like
the whole intro,
there's a lot of underwater shots.
Yep. With the pause, like you talked about, with the pause, just pawing at the neck.
But yeah, there's not a lot of underwater photography, which is unusual for these movies because
a lot of it was like nighttime, dark stuff, so you don't really get to.
Even Piranha had good underwater.
Piranha had a ton,
stuff in that one. But that's a little expensive. They were probably just like, nah, we're not going to do that. We're saving our money.
We're spending it on boobs.
Right. Saving it on.
Most of the wetsuits.
And the wetsuits.
Yeah, no, most of it after a point was the creature falling into the water, rolling into the water, being on fire and going into the water. I mean, that's like. So it was not underwater. It was like, I mean, the water was definitely heavy in this. I mean, if you don't get that, then you're a moron, right? But they didn't like. But John's right though. In the beginning of the movie, they had lots of underwater stuff, and it was really heavy. And I'm guessing that either A, they changed the angle of the movie, or B, they figured out that it was really expensive to shoot underwater, and we're like, okay, we're done with that shit.
Well,
because that cost us a mint.
And another thing, too, actually, that occurs to me is that I can also say that the water up here in Northern California is not very clear. It's pretty dark. And so they probably realized it was hard also to film under there, that you couldn't really see anything.
I would assume like underwater shots would be like studio shots. That wouldn't be like open nature shots.
Mm-hmm.
Well, but it was also 1980, so that's back when the water might have been a touch clearer than it is now.
Definitely.
So because we haven't completely fucked our environment in the ass.
I don't know. It depends on how many of those 40 cases of beer they threw in there.
Yeah, seriously.
No kidding.
I wonder.
No kidding.
I wonder if that was real. That might have been like the beer that they bought for the crew.
Ooh.
Maybe they were like, "Hey,
No, that was Olympia beer.
That's
was
right.
Beer. And Olympia,
it's in the water. It's
Olympia,
yeah, it's Washington.
Olympia was a Pacific Northwest beer for ages, and then I think the brewery was eventually bought by Miller, but then it was like shut down in early 2002 or 2003, something like that, because they were small and like not profitable, and so somebody big bought them and then said, "No, you're done." But that was a beer back then, and that's what
I have a man question. So you guys have all gone fishing, and then you go drinking a bunch while you're fishing, and then when you got to go to the bathroom, you just tell your buddies, "Hey, everybody look that way," and then you stand up and you pee in the water, right? Right? That's what you're fishing?
Yeah, basically.
What if you have to go number 2? Do you like take off your trousers, grab your junk, and say, "I'm gonna go for a swim," and then you go like 10 feet out and then poop? And then
no, you hang it over the side.
Distraction.
No, you just drop trout and hang. Nope, you drop trout and hang it over the side. Because I said you drop trout and hang it over the side because a lot of times, especially if
your friends are gonna smell it.
No, especially if you're fishing at night, the fish dig it.
Not the fish, your friends.
You just,
Wait, are you fishing alone?
Well, but you're fishing though. You're fishing.
I was assuming you were fishing with friends.
No. No, I've been ice fishing enough times in my life where I've pooped in a hole in the ice. Okay, so it's not. That's just sometimes you got to poop in the hole in the ice. That's just how it works.
You're pooping. You're gonna ask your buddy to take a walk, and then you're gonna poop in the hole, which makes total sense. But if you're fishing in normal climate or regular average climate, and you're with friends, would you then take off your trousers, go for a swim, poop, and then come back into the canoe?
No, I just hang it outside the boat.
Even with your friends hanging out there, like 2 feet away?
Yep.
Is this what you guys would do?
I've never been in that situation.
I haven't been in that situation, so I can't say.
I haven't. That's what I did. So there you go. Yep.
Luckily, I haven't had to thought about it.
No. When all is said and done, the one thing you don't do is you don't fuck up the fishing. So if someone's got to stop you don't fuck up the fishing.
I mean, the poop I guess be considered bait.
Oh.
Yeah.
Exactly. And like I said, the fish dig it. So yeah.
All right, let's not keep talking about this because I've got other questions and it's only going to get grosser.
Well, it's also customary that at least one person has to get thrown in the water.
Walk the plank.
Preferably before I poop over the side of the water. Yeah.
That was where I was going earlier. All right, let's move away from pooping in the water. All right, so Humanoids from the Deep, hour and 37 minutes in. Is this our longest review?
I know. Also, keeping
Beach House.
Keeping with the tradition of having reviews that are longer than the
movie. I like that.
I don't know if this is I don't know. Is House maybe the longest review? Maybe. I don't know. This could be.
Maybe.
Beach House. Beach House was over 2 hours.
Oh, wow. Was it? Shit.
Was it really? Wow.
Mm-hmm. We have
true.
Too.
Yeah, that's
so
true.
There was like 5 of us hanging out, chatting about it. It was a lot of fun. I really liked it.
Yep.
Extra people, for sure.
That was nice. That was a nice party.
What is... Oh, yeah. Oh, and so I was going to say, because we're watching Leviathan next, and it occurred to me, another thing that occurred to me while watching this movie is that these water horror movies are basically divided into 2 categories: Jaws ripoffs and Abyss ripoffs.
You're right.
And that's basically it for water horror
movies.
That's
true, yeah.
It's like,
Yeah.
I mean, there's the remember that horror movie that we watched, the really shitty one with Mick Jagger's son
oh god,
with the
yes.
mansion underwater.
The underwater haunted house movie.
What would that fall under?
Oh yeah.
True.
That's the
third
original.
one.
That's original.
That was just.
Although
that was just.
it's terrible, but it's original.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so it got points for that. It got points for being original. I
Yeah, I
agree with
mean,
that. Yeah.
I
You're talking
hated
about
a
the
lot
Deep
of things
House.
about that movie, but I did not hate an underwater mansion.
That movie was like that movie. That movie 100% was. They had a premise for an underwater horror movie,
And they were like,
and they had some underwater cameras, and they were
and
like,
they had some money.
and that was it. They
And
were
that was
like,
it.
we got a house
And
we
lots
got
of scuba
cameras.
tanks. Lots of scuba
Yeah,
tanks.
and scuba
It was
tanks.
such
so
an
that's
annoying
it.
movie. They
That's
set
the
up
movie.
so many premises and stories that they never followed through on. Annoying as shit.
And just to go on a tangent about that movie, which did we forget? What is that movie even called? I don't know what.
It's the
The
Deep
Deep
House.
House.
If you're talking about
Deep
the
House.
French movie,
Yep.
yeah.
That was a movie too
Yep, the Deep
where
House. Yep.
when they showed the ghosts underwater, I was like, so help me God, if that ghost swims, if it makes swimming motions, I'm done. Like that's not.
Yeah, I was waiting for the boom. Just like, okay, come on.
We're
I'm done.
not
I'm
having
done. Yeah.
swimming ghosts. That is
We're not-
that's not
Yeah. He was very adamant about that.
that's not a thing.
I was like, you're damn right.
Oh, shit.
The Deep.
All right, so humanoids from the deep. What did we all actually think?
Problematic.
Did we
but I
think?
still
Did,
like
did we?
Yeah, it's a product of its time,
it. True.
but it's still good. It's still entertaining and it's fun.
And I love Mendocino.
hmm Yeah, overall, it's a good movie.
It should have had Angela Lansbury in it. As a scientist, not getting raped.
Or she could have been playing her character for investigating the murders.
That would have been amazing. She was doing the show at the time too. I think. No, that was
That's a whole new show. It's called Murder She Wrote.
Oh,
So yeah. I don't think I want to talk to that one. Not even a little
I'm gonna
bit.
call Mrs. Lansbury and she's gonna have your ass.
I'm pretty sure she's dead.
No, she's alive.
It's
Well,
definitely.
She's alive?
She's alive.
She must be like 100
She's
years old.
very old.
Oh my
Yeah.
god.
She's like, you know,
Yeah, this movie is definitely a product of its time, but it still is like one of the better like
It is.
sexploitation
It is.
horror movies out
and the
there.
fact that it was two different directors. So we had a director who was making what she believed to be a very legitimate movie, which incidentally, the way that they marketed was the movie we talked about was like The Dark Beneath or whatever, because they thought that Humanoids from the Deep was so cheeky or so kooky that nobody would give them any money and play the movie, or they wouldn't get a good cast. So she was trying to make a good, legitimate movie, and I thought she did pretty well. And then, you know, Carmen was like, more tits, more rape, brought in the second crew. But honestly, like, you know, this was mentioned by another reviewer, was like, that's why we're still talking about it.
Mm.
Was because of the rapey, booby shit.
Yeah.
So.
And you guys, what did you think?
I mean, if you take that part out of it, then it's not sexploitation.
You can't have exploitation without rape.
Yeah, it could just be a movie.
I mean, it wouldn't be an exploitation movie if it didn't have boobs.
Well, yeah, and this film, honestly, this film exploited for the time anyway, it exploited pretty much everything that you could exploit. It exploited talking down to women completely.
Dogs.
You know, the great little scientist lady. The whole murder of the dogs things, I don't know why, but like bugged me, like on a fundamental level. I'm not going to say it was more or less than the rape, but it bugged me.
Yeah.
You have the indigenous
Mhm.
people and them talking about them like wanting their lands back, because that's a thing. Welcome to the real
Environmental
world.
issues.
Yeah. Well, exactly. I mean, can you imagine now trying to make a movie where you can like set someone's bay on fire with gasoline and like somebody would
And
have
you're
to
the
like,
good guys?
wait
Yeah.
a minute, exactly, like, hold the fuck on. This is just not going to happen. But then I think it gets back to it gets a little back to me, at least, for like attacking, because I still think in the end, I think Dr. Drake was in on the whole thing. And I think she was just waiting to see what happened and wanted to be around for whatever happened.
Yeah.
So it kind of goes back and it almost strikes at the heart of like corporate greed and whatever else. Because there's a whole bunch of scenarios in this movie where you have Canco that's like So I mean, there's a lot of that element in it. So I think for the time it definitely talked about a lot of social topics, but I think we're also at a place where a lot of those same social topics still exist today because we haven't, as a society, found some way to fix some of this shit, which is just ridiculous. But the sexploitation part of it, I think, was just the time. I think that was the time. Like, I don't think you talk about Last House on the Left. You talk about I Spit in Your Grave. Those things definitely have those elements, but I think there's also like a certain amount of revenge, and then people feel balanced by the whole thing. Nothing in this felt balanced as far as that went. I mean, when the one girl ends up in the end, popping the humanoid baby out of her gut in a forced C-section, it's like that's not balanced, But I think overall, I think for what I had to work with and for the actors and for the set, I mean, seems like another one of those movies where they spent most of the money on boat rentals and things like that. So it's like, I mean, I think they did a really good job. I mean, the first explosion at sea I thought was really well done. The creature itself, I mean, yeah, it was like guys in rubber suits. I get that, but I think pretty well done. And just like hammering home that point of like, it's like, here's the guys, they just get murdered bloodily with these guys with these giant claws, but then the same time, the guys with the giant claws could very deftly remove a bikini top and show you some boobs.
And not scratch any skin.
So another awesome factor. Yeah. So, overall for me, I'm going to love this movie forever. And I'm not going to be, bashful about it. I just love it.
And Humanoids from the Deep is the best title. The fact, like the version, I don't know if, I imagine it's the same version, but how the title says monster in huge text and then in tiny letters in parentheses it says Humanoids from the Deep is so strange because I've only ever known the movie as Humanoids from the Deep. I've never known it as anything else. And Monster is the most generic possible title. That
you're going to have a million movies come up if you research that. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like you're really like... It's weird because you want your movie to stand out, and that's something Roger Corman would have known. And so naming the movie Monster over Humanoids from the Deep is a really weird decision.
You could be watching a movie that you think is this, and you're like, when is Charlize Theron going to meet the sea monster?
Mm-hmm. But... definitely good movie. And I also just want to point out that these movies were really looked down on back in the day. These were like the sort of B and C level movies that were like, oh, this is the trashy movie, not a real movie. But compared to today's
trashy movie,
B movies of the 80s and 70s are infinitely better than low budget, low tier movies of today, where it's like Humanoids from the Deep is a real movie, even though it's flawed and has its issues. But it's actually like the editing and pacing is really good.
No, everything about it. I thought the setting was fantastic. I thought the actors were selected were really great too. Like even the fucking ventriloquist in a fucking tent on the beach. Like that's just an added level of entertainment to a scene that's already entertaining. So it's got a lot of details and it's got a lot of it's a good movie.
And how anybody could think that being a ventriloquist would get them laid is just mind-boggling.
Yeah, I've been sanded. I'm fine. Yeah,
Yeah. When did I get a splinter? No.
Yeah, yeah. Oh.
Oh my god! Right. We're pushing up on 2 hours.
We're pushing up on 2 hours. I think
it's fair to say that we all love this movie, and now that we are 40 minutes over its runtime talking about it, I'm down. Humanoids all day long, twice on Sunday.
Definitely.
Absolutely, but we'll never know if the humanoids come back to take care of the baby.
They won't.
We need a soft reboot.
I think the humanoids from the deep are also absentee fathers, so probably
Definitely.
not. But that's okay because
That's why
we're
they
a
have a
civilized
scientist.
society. Yeah, exactly. She will
You
take
know,
care
there
of
was
them.
it sounds like we're wrapping it up,
little
but
droppers.
just before I forget, there was this comic, a graphic novel series called Girls.
Mm-hmm.
Did you guys ever read that? So
No, but
Yes.
there was a Humanoids from the Deep sequel that was a comic.
Oh. So in the comic that I'm talking about, and again, just going to unfairness, is that so this graphic novel series called Girls is about these aliens that come to Earth, and they it's the opposite of the humanoids from the deep, which is that they look like young, beautiful women, and they gruesomely murder human women and mate with the dudes. But they look like gorgeous, beautiful human women, as opposed to the humanoids from the deep that look like fucking like sea monsters.
So you're saying they should look more like the creature from water, more sexy.
I'm like, come on, throw us a bone, man.
Have a six pack like the shape of water.
Shape
Is that
of
what it's
water,
called?
yeah.
The shape
I'd
of
even
water.
take that.
See, I'm not really seeing a difference between like being mesmerized by like the woman's figure as opposed to like the humanoid 18-inch penis.
You see no difference? I'm sorry, what?
You know what they say? Long arms, long penis.
Now they say if you've got big shoes, you probably have big feet. Yeah. It's the same thing. It's. I said it before. This movie is so hypersexual. I mean, there aren't too many scenes in this movie that are not hypersexual in one way or the other. But I also don't think that it's a bad thing because we're all people and we're all in some way, shape, or form hypersexual. And yeah, this movie showed us.
Yeah, because you're not the one getting raped by sea creatures, man.
No. I'm not. That's not Holly. Not what I meant at all. What I was talking about is, yes, it shows us like what everybody thinks is like these perfect divisions and whatever else. And the reality is, most of us don't think that. You know, it's what we've been taught to think. Okay, and we don't. But it isn't. I mean, granted, if I'm watching a movie and I see a nice pair of boobs, I'm gonna go, "Hey, nice boobs." Okay, I'm gonna do that every time because I'm alive and my heart is beating. Okay, beyond that, it's not. These movies try so hard to show us what is the perceived like embodiment of perfection, and that's not what everybody thinks. It just isn't. You know, I mean, great. It's a movie. Saw some boobs. I mean, that sells tickets. It does whatever else. But you know, when it comes down to like being a person and living your life, it's like for me, the person that's lying right next to me at night, which is my wife, who's the person that's been bringing me beer and doing whatever else. That's my perfection.
Very
okay,
sweet.
and I don't. But I'm still gonna. When I see a movie and there's a nice pair of boobs, I'm still gonna go, sweet, nice boobs, because it's what's wrong with that? I mean, it's not.
Joey had a meatball
I don't think
sub
it makes
ready
me
for me when I came to the show today. That's my perfection.
See, there you go. Exactly. So you understand what I'm talking about. So it's not. Movies are movies. Real life is real life, and it's like super fun to talk
That's
about
great.
this stuff.
I would just say
it's-
it would be nice if sometimes the rapey monsters were attractive. That's all I'm saying.
Well, we did have like the.
Well, but if they were, they wouldn't be called rapey monsters. They just wouldn't.
First of all, consent is more complicated than that.
We did have that David.
I don't think it is. They just would not be called rapey monsters. They'd be called Chippendales.
Well, we did have there was the Cronenberg like sex movie, which kind of did that.
Within Society?
Yeah. Oh no, the what?
No, Shivers.
Yeah,
Shivers.
Which we reviewed.
Okay.
Where it was like the sexy sex monster.
At least like trying to remember.
You
What
forgot.
I forgot it. Wait, can you remind me?
The apartment building with the young couple and everybody's like having sex because it's like a sex virus. Like,
but
creature.
the sex virus affected everyone. There were a couple
That's
of
what
like
I'm saying. Like,
taboo
that's the movie
scenes.
where
That
kind of does that.
It was like even playing field. Yeah.
Yeah. It was kind of went every direction.
It's true.
But yeah, no, it's a product of it. It's a movie of its time. It's the like.
I will give you that.
I mean, it's the he's making low budget movies, and he's like, we got to get the butts in the seats. Got to have the boobs.
Gotta have the boobs.
Yeah, what sells?
So,
Sex.
sells.
Blood.
Yeah, right.
Well, sex and blood are the two great nullifiers. So, sex and blood are what completely balances the playing field. If you have those two things,
You can let go of
anybody
everything
will watch
else,
it. And even if you, and you can say rom-com, you can say whatever else. Those are the movies that like everybody will sit down and watch for one reason or another. And either it leaves you in a place where you're wanting more, you're wanting less, or you're wondering what's around the corner. It just does those
Sex
things.
and blood works
And
on
that's-
everybody. It's not just for guys, it's for women too. It also shapes our own idea of sexuality and our own concepts. So it's very widespread for
Drink
sure.
a 6-pack, man.
Yeah. Well, thank you.
Jody,
Well,
do
thank
want
you
a big
for
camera?
thank you for admitting that, Holly, because most women won't. So that's outstanding. Most women will not admit that sex and blood sells. They just won't admit it. They're just like, no, I just want people to be romantic. Yeah, to a certain extent you do, but at the same time, it's like sex and blood is
Well,
what
that's the
brings
step after
people to
romance,
watch
is the
something.
banging. That's
That's kind of exactly it, right? Exactly. Yeah.
Women know
It's
that
like,
too.
yeah, I got flowers.
Nice.
I got flowers. Where's the?
You're like,
yeah,
thank
it's
you.
like,
This is lovely.
time to break out the
So we
whips and
take
the
our
chains
clothes
and let's go.
Yeah, if the humanoids had flowers, that would probably have at least helped a little bit.
A little bit. Yeah.
Would have made him a little less rapey. Yeah, if they showed up with a
Don't
little
run
bouquet of
away.
daffodils and was
Don't
like, hey,
run
by the
away.
way, and then they magically made your top fly off and raped you on the beach,
I
then
hate
you'd
you
be better
anyway,
with that
bitch.
somehow.
Oh,
Yeah.
they're inside.
I have chocolates too.
Yeah. So humanoids from the deep. I think we all love it. I think we'll probably all watch it again at some point. And I think we all wish it was maybe a tiny bit less rapey, but sign of the times.
I think I made a lot of horrifying points in this show. I think I suggested that men get raped. I think I suggested that the humanoids that are being rapey be more attractive. These are all horrible points of view. And they're mostly because I'm drunk and trying going for laughs. So let's put that.
I just want to point out, Holly's looking for the equal opportunity rape. On Twisted Tuesday, we're just looking for equal opportunity when it comes to oral sex and it being reciprocated.
Yeah, you know what? As long as you don't bring a chainsaw to the party, I'm pretty much down. So whatever, Well, but even I'm like, but I may have a tree that needs to be cut down, so maybe the chainsaw's okay. I don't know. Yeah. If you're looking for equal opportunity in horror, to be perfectly honest, I think you need to look somewhere else.
First of all, there's a couple of great movies that.
Well, now they are. Yeah, there's some new stuff that's kind of like doing that a little bit.
The Descent was fucking awesome.
Nice.
Well, go back to the movie Teeth.
There you go, Teeth.
I'm guessing everyone here has seen the movie Teeth. Okay, that was pretty fucking equal opportunity.
Definitely.
So yeah, I mean, and there's not enough of it, but it was pretty much like, hey, by the way, I'm gonna rip your shit off when you're not looking. So I mean, if there was anything that was ever like trying to level a playing field, I think that was that. So I mean, it does exist out there, and I'm not gonna defend the late 70s, early 80s horror and
you don't have
the tit
to.
factor
I mean,
that it had, because
it's like we were saying.
well, I can't because I can't. That's the whole thing. I can't defend the tit factor. But I also don't think that it's like terrible that a little piece of me likes it.
Well, I mean, they're mixing up a lot of things that you would like. Well, let's not get into it. It's a whole long conversation. But you know what I mean, right? I mean, somebody's putting a gorgeous-looking person naked in front of you in a sexual context. They're giving you signals to like this, and then kind of not think that the other thing is so bad. It's a whole programming thing, but it's a. Again, let's not get into it. It's a very long conversation, and we've already been at this for 2 hours.
Yeah, everyone just loves hardcore smut. That's all you need to know about sexploitation movies.
Hardcore smut. And that's natural.
All right, so just as a reminder, next week we have Leviathan, which was released in 1989, directed by George B.
I've never seen
Cosmatos. It's been so long since I've seen most of those movies in that wheelhouse or that subgenre. So it'll be good to revisit that one after. It's probably been since I was a kid. Was the last time I watched it. So
Nice. Yes.
Exciting.
Yeah, I haven't seen it in ages, so it'll be interesting to see what the deal is with it. I don't even remember. I know I've seen it, but I remember nothing about it. Except that it's like The Abyss. I remember that.
Yeah, it's not.
Is
like
it not
that.
like
That's okay.
Isn't
That's
it
okay,
an
John.
underwater-
That's totally
isn't it
okay.
an underwater, like
That's where the similarities stop.
yeah.
Yeah.
And
Yeah. There's scientists. There's some scientists. Yep, I would agree with that. There's
God,
some
I love
scientists.
me some
Yep.
scientists in
Yeah.
horror.
and a lobster. I'm pretty sure there's like a lobster monster.
Is there a lobster monster? Right.
Towards the end, kind of. Yeah, it's a total practical effect, and it's like not the best done, but at the same time, awesomely done. So yeah, but yeah, it's there. It's there. Yeah. Not until the surface. It's like right at the end. So just save that last long stroke right for the end, right where you can just yeah.
Nice.
Yeah. No, it's awesome. It's awesome. I've seen that movie probably 12, 15 times. I've seen it definitely in the last 2 years because I've just always it's in that it's in the same vein as Deep Star 6.
Right.
So
Yeah.
so it's
Which I
it's
also
really
have.
good. But it has Peter Weller. It has Peter Weller, Meg Foster,
That's right.
who else is in that? There's some other people in there that you'd like totally know. So it's it's awesome. It's an awesome
I
movie.
might be mixing up my memories with Deep Star 6 because that's another one I saw but don't remember. But I might be mixing it up.
No, yeah, totally possible. Totally possible.
We're good. Yes.
Yeah, you're good. Momentarily.
Yeah, my phone's right now.
Momentary blackout.
We just got the low battery warning on the.
Ah.
On our device.
That's
That's definitely not just my phone.
But yeah, okay. Well, with that being said, let's wrap it up for tonight. So I do want to thank everyone for joining us here tonight on Handle Whiskey. This has been episode 69 for Humanoids from the Deep. You know,
How
perfect kind of have a
apropos.
smut movie in, you know?
It's gross.
That was the one thing we.
But I do.
Sorry.
This movie was was 60.
Yeah, those humanoids were very selfish lovers.
Totally. They were not. They were not givers.
They were takers.
Yeah, that's kind of how that goes with that. But I do want to thank Grindhouse again for joining us this week.
Yeah.
And of course, I'm joined as always by my co-hosts Holly, Hooch, and John. And for now, guys, we will see you next week when we're talking Leviathan. Y'all take care.
Finger guns.